He's here to talk about another topic, however, and it's a topic that if you're a newly licensed or recently licensed ham might apply to you, or it might apply if you're experienced. And the idea has to do with pressing that push-to-talk button. That can be, it was pretty hard for me. There's just something about it, pressing that push-to-talk button when you're a new ham. So he's here to offer some strategies that we can, each of us can use for pressing push-to-talk and actually making voice contacts in ham radio. Let's have a warm round of welcome for Paul.
Well, if we get the screen up. Well, you know, it's sort of interesting when Hoop approached me on this, and you don't think about it after you've been in the hobby 48 years. You know, I'm not mic shy anymore, but we all started out that way once upon a time. And really what I'd like to present on, and we could keep the screen up for a little while, that'd be so kind, is I like to show that little cartoon up in the upper left, you know. Let's go after DXCC, Alexa, just go do it, you know, as opposed to doing the hard work or setting down your key and or your digital modes and say, hey, let's get on the air a little bit. So I'll try to cover some points on how to make contacts. And you know, it's really true. I remember the first time still to this day when I didn't have a license. I was at a ham radio operator's place who became my Elmer later, and he threw me on the mic. But the neat thing was that his first contact was a station in New Mexico, and he was in Taos. And I had been there, and I knew where the guy was. I had gone hiking up in the mountains. It broke the ice. It's things like that. So, you know, don't worry about the radio lingo, so to speak. So whether you're a technician, general, or extra, speaking in the microphone does not have to be a challenge. It's just a conversation. And you do it every day, but when that microphone hits, it's like everybody freezes. So you don't want to be mic shy. And you have so much more in common with other hams than you think. So I'm going to share some quick tips today through a lifetime of hamming. The conversations can be just like you're at the restaurant, or you go out in the morning and meet with your friends to have some coffee. It's no different. It's just that when the microphone's there, you freak out and you think, oh, this is different. What do I say? So you just have to build your confidence, break the ice, and know who you are first. That's just a communications basic. Who are you, and what do you like to talk about? Because that helps break the ice with anybody you would speak to on the air. But let's go back in time and say, hey, what do I need to do first? Build your QRZ page. It sounds a little strange, but even if you're only a technician class, build a QRZ page. And the reason for that is it's one of these great locations that ham radio shares worldwide. People pop on QRZ while they're talking to you, especially if you're operating from home. In the mobile, not so much. But if you're at home and you're operating your VHF station, I will look you up. It's just a habit I have, and I've learned to do that. So what do you want to put on a QRZ page? Well, you know, everybody's worried about things getting stolen and everything. Well, in the ham radio world, QRZ got hacked a few years ago once, and that's the only time I've heard of it. They've tightened things up. But put some basics. What's your station setup? Have a little blurb on there. Do you have any hobbies that you would like to make public? Pictures of equipment, antennas, other things you don't mind other hams seeing. Because I have found by having that built out on my page, I end up having great conversations with people around the world. So this is my landing page. When you get into QRZ, we could do a whole nother session on how to set up in QRZ, and we'll keep that for another day. But that's my page, and when you get into it, you see this. So I put up a picture. I like to kayak. And I find sometimes other people who like to boat, and they see that and say, oh, you like to go on the water. That starts a whole nother avenue of conversation. I put some content up there. I'm not asking everybody to read a novel or anything, but I shared what's my equipment, what are some of my antennas I use, what modes do I like to operate. I like sideband, I like FT8. I'm allergic to CW since I didn't pass my extra in the old days. So I have just a penchant for it. But anyways, everybody has their modes. Put out what you'd like to do. I like antique equipment. I show my antennas off. After moving from Williamson County, I got some land and no HOA. So I have 2 towers up, and I like to do my brag sheet. There they are. Fun to have. I have other wire antennas and things up in the trees that I couldn't do here. So the good news is people see that and say, oh, nice beams, and oh, I had something like that, or that's the style and type I have. I mean, my HF beam is 46 years old. I've rebuilt it 4 times. Aluminum doesn't rust. That starts a whole nother conversation. Last year, I built a really cool 30-meter vertical. It's out of junk parts. I learned that instead of an inverted V, I could get farther with the vertical on the digital mode. And guess what? I just got my DXCC on 30 meters because of that antenna. So, you know, you play and you learn things, and so I share what I do on my QRZ page. I like antique radios. This is always a conversation starter, and that's not all of them. I have guys tell me after they look at that, I remember that rig, I had one of those, or I still have it, and what do you do with yours, and how do you play? It just opens a whole avenue, and next thing I know, 30 minutes has gone by talking to a guy out in California or somewhere, just because he saw something in common. There's other antiques that I have restored, and I am in the process of restoring, and they'll look at that and go, wow, my grandfather had that farm radio, or blah, blah, blah. So go ahead, it's a brag sheet. That's what it's for. QRZ is a place to start your conversation. So while I'm talking to someone, and this is overseas, they're on QRZ looking me up, and I look them up religiously. It gives me information for the parts I'm going to show you now. So let's start local. If you're a technician, we don't hear you a lot. Why is that? Are you afraid to talk on the radio? Might be. You know, you check in on the nets and all of that, and that's great, but hey, you have a personality. You have interesting characteristics or something we all might be interested in. So how do you start? Well, if you're sitting there at home and you want to talk to somebody, log on to the repeater and say, this is WD9IOK, I'm monitoring. The purpose of that is that everyone will know you're ready for a conversation. That's all. It's a simple break the ice mode. And if you don't get a response right away, don't panic, you know, but if you do, still don't panic. There's some basics you can do. Number one is you have that first exchange. Hey, I'm Paul. I'm located in Las Casas. You know, are you mobile or fixed? I might be driving, like this morning, I'm talking here on the radio on the way here, and hey, I'm mobile in Murfreesboro on the way to here in Franklin. Are you heading anywhere? Just basic stuff like that. Ted and I, we run into each other all the time. Are you coming back from the golf course? 90% of the time, Ted's on the way back from the golf course. But we chat and how was the game and how did the round go, etc. Also, when you get into a second exchange, you know, after you give the basic information, you know, talk a little bit about your equipment. Hey, I'm using an HT, or I'm mobile today, and here's my new whip antenna I put on the car, or I mounted this. But the other part is listen to what they're saying too, because really, this is a duplex conversation, even though it's one person speaking at a time. Think about how you're going to respond. Think about what they talked about. People love to talk about their things too, and we'll get into that more. But other quick tips is, if it's the first time I'm working you, give me your call phonetically a couple of times. Because I keep a pad in the car, and I'm living dangerously, I will quickly scratch it down with your name. If I've worked you a lot of times, you're in my memory engrams, not a problem. But a first timer, first couple of exchanges, throw your call out there phonetically just to help us, because that allows me to write it down. But the other thing is, watch repeater timers. Unlike HF, typically it's about 2 minutes in length before you get cut off. Some repeaters are 2.5, some are 1.5 minutes. It just depends where you are in the country. But on those first couple of exchanges, let me have your call a couple of times. It's going to take me a few moments to get myself together. Another thing is some conversation tips. The term we use in communication is called probing. And you hear reporters do that on TV. I'm a trained classical reporter from years ago. I know how to do an interview. So I have a little jump. But probe a little bit. Where are you going today? Well, hey, I'm driving down 65. I'm on my way to Columbia to go visit somebody or see something. You know, it might open up something as a conversation. Weather. Everybody talks about the weather, like the hail we just had come through town here a couple of days ago. There's always something weather-related you can break the ice with. Another one is local activities with WCARES. Hey, you're going to field day, you're doing this. See if anything clicks. That's how probing works. Is there anything going to bite? And you know what? You give it a couple of tries. If it doesn't, hey, it's a great meeting you today, and you know, move on to the next one. But it's a good thing to try. And you show interest also in the other person's hobbies. Granted, we all have ham radio in common, but there's so many facets to this hobby. Which ones are you interested in? I mean, I've been at this going on 5 decades here pretty soon, and I've experimented with a lot of things. And there's a lot of knowledge out there, and you can tap that. It's really cool. I love coaching new hams on the air. You know, what did you think about this? Did you think about that? You know, just, you know, you're having an antenna problem. I'm working with a guy right now who lives in the south end of Rutherford County who can't hit the repeater during Skywarn events, and he's texting me on Slack, and it's like distracting because it's another channel I got to monitor when I'm running a Skywarn net. And I'm helping coach him on how to get a better antenna up in his yard. He's a technician. So, I mean, hey, I had to learn from somebody, and there's a lot of us who are willing to share. Also, if you're concerned about, well, I'm not exactly sure what to say, monitor the repeater. You'll hear a bunch of us yakking out there. We do. I run into Hoop all the time. I'll say, hey, I'm mobile. I'm going to be in the car for the next 15 minutes, going somewhere, going to Home Depot, my favorite store. What are you doing today? Well, I'm working on this project. It's just a natural, standard way of speaking. You do it all the time, and you don't have to be mic shy about it. Also, it's great when you're running around the country. If you're taking a road trip, I monitor 146.52. I make it a practice. It's not real busy. A lot of people hang out on repeaters. But you'd be amazed at who you run into blowing down the highways. I was recently to Florida. I couldn't make the April meeting. I was down visiting family. I'm going down their Sun Pass Road, and I ran into guys on 652. I was in the middle of nowhere. And they're just coming the other way. It's a short pass, but it passes time. So you don't have to program the world's repeaters. Sometimes just 652. If you've got HF capability, that becomes a little more interesting, but it's a blast. I have met some really neat people around the world. I've got a collection of QSL cards and confirmations from folks that I felt were extra special confirmations. I'll still send them a QSL card the old-fashioned way because I was impressed with the conversations we had. Sometimes they'll be very quick. You'll hear people on HF and you'll hear, oh, 5.9, blah, 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 and you're done. Okay, stop and think about it. When you have a conversation with someone like that and it goes really quick, especially in Eastern Europe, I find that they're in for the contacts and they're trying to just work locations, either grid squares or counties or whatever. They're trying to work on an award, so they don't really want to have a conversation. And you can figure that out by just trying 1 or 2 quick probes. And if you hear them trying to truncate the conversation, take the cue, he's not the guy. But look up their QRZ page, and sometimes you'll see it's a club station, or it's not a lot of information there, and he's probably not going to want to, what we call, rat you. Also, when you talk to people, I find, is it a place you've traveled to before? In my previous life, I flew all over the world, and I saw some really cool places. And when I talk to that country, like Japan, I love talking to Japan, I've been there. I've been around their country, and when you tell them you've been to this city or this city, it just opens up the door a little bit. Wow, you've been here. Yeah, great culture, nice people, you know, that kind of thing. It's just, once again, it's a conversation starter. So think about that even for stateside conversation, you know, whether it be, you know, you've been in Oregon or up in the Maine. It's amazing people love to talk about their state. Some tips, though. It's more challenging than VHF, of course, but it can be a fun way to meet perfect strangers. So the first thing is, don't try to start a conversation with a DX station and a pilot. Don't do that. You tick off a lot of folks who are trying to get the contact for the award that they're going after. And you can hear that. If you're hearing they're running splits and, you know, they're over here transmitting or a de-expedition, they're not here to talk right now. They're here to make contacts. It's all about speed and timing. So a great way, though, to meet DX is to call CQ on HF. It's a little gutsier, but it's a lot of fun. So here, practice. That's one of the things I recommend first. So if you're sort of hesitant and you want to break the ice, start in the U.S. first. Get on 40 meters during the day on a Saturday or whatever. Daytime bands are short skip, right? You've learned that in your training. And call CQ. You hear guys doing it. CQ, CQ, CQ. This is WD&IOK. And I repeated a couple times, standing by for a call. That's the invite. You want to talk to somebody. If no answer, try 2 or 3 more times. It's not like the repeaters. Someone's got to be on one of the 2 billion frequencies we have and hear you going by. And that's how I catch people sometimes. I'll just be generally tuning around and I'll hear somebody calling CQ and, oh, wait, I might talk to this guy. So remember, people have to find you on HF. It's not like the repeater. Another trick is, you know what, I don't know if I'm ready to call CQ, but I'd still like to talk to that guy because I heard an interesting conversation going on about antennas or something. So if they're in QSO with someone else, wait till they're finished and then call that station. If they didn't have to leave fast, they might be willing to have a conversation with you. So that's just sort of a method to do that. You know, give your call out, throw it back at them and see if they pick you up, if they heard you, and then, hey, I'm experimenting with my new antenna today. Wonder if you can copy me because you had a great signal at my house. Another thing is DX is international. And outside the United States, a lot of stations don't have English as their primary language. So really speak a little slower and use good diction. So if you've got a real hard Southern twang, it's going to be tough. But use good diction, they'll be able to understand you better. And I find that when I slow down and I'm speaking to an international station, they really appreciate it because their breadth of English may be very narrow. In ham radio, it could just be typical 5'9", here's my equipment, and they're running out of gas real fast. But other stations, you find out, wow, they have a good propensity to speak our language, and you can have a great conversation with some really cool folks around the world. And take notes. Listen to what they're saying, just like I was coaching before, and create probing questions like on their QRZ page. I've run into some cool people with neat antenna setups, or one guy I talked to was into gardening. I like to garden, and he had some great pictures of his gardens on QRZ. And you go, well, okay, that's a little different. Press that button, learned a whole bunch of stuff, what he does to protect from, not having to use poisons and insects that are, wrecking the garden. Everybody wants to know about that. But everybody loves to talk about their hobbies. And I see on some QRZ pages guys who like the motorcycle, people who like the ATV, antique radios, whatever. By going to that QRZ page as you start the conversation, you can quickly learn what their interests are, and that helps expand the conversation range. So in conclusion, don't be mic shy. It's a blast. There are some really great people out there. And I can tell you that after having good 30 to 45 minute QSOs with people, I get thank yous afterwards for, that was a good time. I really enjoyed that investment of time meeting you, and I did too. And that's the nice thing about ham radio. It connects you worldwide. It's really cool. Be one of those people. And if you're worried and you're still mic shy, reach out to me. I'll meet you on the repeater. I'll get on 40 meters. We can try to work you. I'll help break the ice, give you some practice. It's not that hard. Most important, have fun. That's what this hobby's all about. It's a cool aspect. Don't miss out on sideband. Any questions? Didn't think it would be that hard. Thank you.
Let's have a warm round of applause.